Reddit's IPO took place last week, and by all accounts, it was a pretty good success. $34 per share was the price that the company actually sold shares. The stock popped to about $54 per share, which actually means that Reddit left a lot of money on the table. Oftentimes, this is seen as a positive in the market, but in reality, you would like the price that investors or insiders are paying to be the same price as the market opens up at, but that's never quite the case, and there's structural reasons for that, which I'm not going to dig into in this video. But shares have slid a little bit in the couple of days since the IPO took place. But if you're looking at Reddit as a potential investment, I think there are a few things you need to know about the IPO and about IPOs in general. This is a company that is coming to the market after well over a decade in operations, still is not profitable. There are a lot of questions about how Reddit is going to grow revenue and generate profits long term. And I know there's a very, very passionate user base, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this is a good business to own long term. So I'm going to highlight 3 specific things you need to know before buying shares. My name is Travis Hoium. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content. And thanks to this video's sponsor, The Motley Fool. If you go to fool.com/ASYM, they'll give you their top 10 stocks to buy right now. So let's start with the stock price before getting into these 3 items that I think are really important. This is a look at the movement of shares since opening on Thursday. You can see that stock opened up around $54 per share, now down to $46 at the end of trading on Friday. So a little bit of a decline since then. Not that unusual for things to be pretty volatile in the first few days of trading. That's one of the reasons that I stay away from IPOs. You never quite know what is going to pop and what's going to drop. And typically a few weeks or months after an IPO takes place, shares are going to settle into a nice trading range, and then you eventually run into a period where the lockup that insiders typically have, or a period of time where they can't sell stock in the open market, ends, and then you get a bunch more shares dumping into the market. But these are kind of the structural reasons to be a little bit skeptical of IPOs. But there are a couple of things that I want to highlight in the IPO. This is page 194 from the most recent filing. That's the filing that's going to have all of the information that you need to know about Reddit's business, its financials. And what this does is it shows shares beneficially owned before the offering. And this is a bunch of insiders and investors, and then shares beneficially owned after the offering. So what a lot of insiders can do is they can sell their stock as part of the IPO. There's basically 2 pieces of an IPO. There's a company selling stock, and that's going to give them funds that they can actually use to operate the business. And then there are funds that are being sold by insiders. So basically shareholders or employees or founders who have been running the business for a long period of time and probably haven't had the ability to sell shares. They're given that opportunity at the IPO. This typically does not extend too far down the stack from an employee perspective. So it would just be the top ranking executives. And that's what's disclosed here. I will zoom in on some of this, but I want to highlight a few specific people. Stephen Huffman is the CEO. Jennifer Wong is the COO of the company. And then there are a bunch of other insiders listed here. The 5% or greater stockholders are typically investors, but you'll note Sam Altman here. I'll get to him in just a little bit. Tencent, Via Capital, and then there are some other selling stockholders as well. So they go through shares owned before the offering. There are Class A shares and Class B shares, and the B shares can be converted into A shares. This is a little bit of a complicated structure, but you can see exactly what's being sold here by some of these insiders. Steve Huffman is selling 500,000 shares in the offering. So at $34 per share, that is a $17 million sale of Reddit stock at the IPO. Now he's still going to have plenty of exposure to Reddit. Owns about 2.6% of the total shares outstanding. And then Jennifer Wong is selling 514,000 shares. And after the IPO, will have about 1% of the shares outstanding. There is also a laundry list of executive officers, employees, some who are not named here, selling shares in the IPO. This column right here is just a list of all of the people selling their shares in an IPO. And most of these are shareholders who don't own a ton of stock, but are probably selling a lot of their stock. So shareholders between 77,000 and 82,000 shares of stock are selling 74,000 shares of stock. Now, it's not necessarily unusual for insiders to be selling shares of stock in an IPO. especially shareholders who haven't had the opportunity to monetize their stock for a long time. But what I think is striking with Reddit in particular is, given the age of the company and the tumultuous nature of the company's structure over time, is the fact that there's nobody who is really fully in control of Reddit. There's not a typical technology company in Silicon Valley where one of the co-founders owns 10, 20, 30% of the company. Huffman is one of the co-founders of Reddit, but so is Alexis Ohanian, and he's not even listed in the S1. So it doesn't appear that he has any sort of significant stake in the company or is selling at the IPO. So this is a little bit of a strange structure from an insider perspective. And I want to highlight one of the particular insiders who I think historically has had a really big influence in Reddit because of his involvement at Y Combinator, and that is Sam Altman, who is also one of the co-founders and the CEO of OpenAI. Now, Altman is really well known in tech circles in Silicon Valley, and one of the reasons is his involvement in Y Combinator and actually getting Reddit out of Condé Nast, who acquired the company for about $10 billion and then kind of didn't do anything with it. So got the company back out, built Reddit to the company that it is today, or at least, and helped the structure that built Reddit to the company that it is today. But he's actually one of the most powerful shareholders. Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. If we go back to this table, entities affiliated with Sam Altman own 789,000 Class A shares, or 3.7%, 11.4 million B shares, and in total have a 9.1% voting stake within the company. So he is still one of the biggest shareholders in Reddit today and is actually not selling shares as part of the IPO, or did not sell shares as part of the IPO. So Sam Altman, I don't think really known as somebody who has been super influential in Reddit, but was influential in the company's structure and the way that it came out of Condé Nast. So just a really interesting note there. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is the role artificial intelligence will potentially play in Reddit's financials. This is on page 8 of the S, and this is in reference to data licensing. And what I think users and investors need to understand about Reddit is that once people post on Reddit, that is now Reddit's content. That's no longer the user's content. And so Reddit can basically do whatever they want with it. One of the things that they're doing with it is selling it to companies to build artificial intelligence models, data API access. Customers can pay to access real-time data streams of anonymous public discussions on Reddit via data APIs once they exceed certain rate limits. In reference to model training, Reddit data is a foundational piece of the construction of current AI technology and many LLMs. We believe Reddit's massive corpus of conversational data and knowledge will continue to play a role in training and improving LLMs. What they don't say here is that they are actually getting a pretty significant amount of money for this. This is from The Verge. In February, Google cut a deal with Reddit for artificial intelligence training, reportedly paying about $60 million per year just to access Reddit's data for their training purposes. Now, this is something that a lot of companies are probably going to do, but will also be potentially a competitive hindrance for Reddit, because if you're posting on Reddit and you realize that this is information that's going to be used for training LLMs, maybe that will make it a little less appealing to be posting on Reddit versus some other social media network. Maybe this will give an opportunity for another social media platform that is not selling this data to disrupt a company like Reddit. And remember, Reddit is not profitable right now. So this is financially potentially a way the company could get to profitability, is increasing this revenue from artificial intelligence, but it's also potentially a competitive threat. So I think Reddit is a really compelling potential IPO investment. But there's a couple of things that really worry me as an investor. Insiders are selling a significant amount of their stakes. They also don't have a ton of skin in the game. So that's a red flag, especially in the technology world, and given the tumultuous nature of Reddit's history and the changes of leadership at the top. You also have Sam Altman's involvement, and given his role in artificial intelligence and in the technology world today, I don't know if that's a bullish sign or if that's something to be bearish about. But I think it's really notable for investors. And then the third thing is that artificial intelligence could potentially play a role in the company's future, could improve their financials, but could also be a competitive threat if this isn't something that users are really going to embrace on Reddit's side. And their financials don't look great right now. Revenue was up in the past year to $804 million from $667 million a year ago. Loss shrank from $158 million a year ago to just $87 million in the past year. But this is still a money-losing company, and even that $60 million check from Google isn't going to make up for all of those losses. So a lot of challenges for Reddit. I think it's not real clear how they're going to be able to grow the advertising business in the way that they would probably like to in the future. But if they are, I'm definitely willing to change my thesis on Reddit, because this is obviously a platform that users love to use if they are able to build a competitive advantage and some sort of find a financial model that really works and is sustainable long term and isn't just selling their data. I think that could be really compelling from an investment perspective. But given the current red flags, not an IPO that I'm going to invest in right now, but we'll be digging into a little bit more in the future on this channel. So subscribe to Asymmetric Investing if you want to hear more about high potential stocks. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you here next time.